Welcome to Commission to Communicate. This is a special double feature segment. I am AliNICOLE WOW, and joining me for this special segment is Brenda Jacobson, and we are going to be featuring the Commission to Communicate Higher Throat Chakra Activation, which was facilitated by me, and also Commission to Communicate Your New High-End Connection Factors, an on-air workspace session that featured Brenda. And so excited to bring this to you today. And so you are really in for a treat, and Brenda and I are going to sort of set up the stage to segue you into this experience. Brenda, thank you so much for being here with me again.
You're very welcome. I'm really excited to share this with people. It was such a powerful experience.
Oh,
so you are in for a treat.
Definitely. So, and setting them up, let's talk a little bit about this, because I know that within the session that you did, that we did, together, and we've had the on-off air sessions and everything. And actually that particular experience will set them up, for them and give them kind of some background and context to what we did leading up, into that particular session. But I think it would be great to talk a little bit about just the activation initially. And then if you want to share just a few things leading up to the workspace session that we did, and then what the experience was for you even after, because I know you're still having kind of to be with that, just how you felt just initially after, and then we can talk about, segueing them into the actual experience. So let's hear about that.
All right. Yeah, it was a very interesting experience, because I did the activation before you and I met. Mm-hmm. And then we deepened it to a new level. Mm-hmm. And it really, to me, it was almost surreal. It was outside of the realm that we were working in, which is what it was intended for. But it took a few days for it to, like I could feel it working for a few days afterwards. And the changes in my way of being were really quite profound. Like even things that were outside of my control, like my dreams started coming back, and I started dreaming, and I started, getting chills through my body as my physicality upgraded into that new activation, and just a lot of things around me that started changing just from that first activation. And then we moved into the second one, which took me to another level. It really built, I could see how that first activation had solidified, how I'd kind of solidified my foundation at that new level. And then the second level took me up into a higher experience.
Oh, absolutely. I love how you shared that. And that was perfect, because when you were doing just the initial activation, like you said, that was something you were listening to, on your own. And then when we got together within, a session, so to speak, and then actually did an activation for you within there, going through, the process, and how then that opened up to us actually now doing the on-air workspace that we, that we did kind of in the VIP, because everything was building up from a VIP weekend intensive, kind of just done in those formats, and then just saying, now let's bring kind of this to the workspace session on air so that we can start maybe some higher master planning, around this, and then other people can benefit. And now here we are talking about this today after your workspace session, and how we feel that this process would benefit others richly to hear the activation and then come back and hear your workspace session, and it just kind of ties it all in. And so I just think that was great. So you've set up in terms of talking about what the activation initially did, and gave just, some of the experience leading up to the workspace session. So talk a little bit about what was going on for you during the workspace session, and then how you kind of felt, afterwards. Because I know we have to do other sessions to flesh that out, but it would be good just to, just to hear about that.
Well, they're kind of all tied together. As I say, it was a step-by-step process. So during the activation I did on my own, kind of started things off. The first session that we did, where I walked through the activation with you, it, just different things started coming up. I'm very visual. So I started seeing visions of, I got this sense of reflection, and then I saw the springboard and just springboarding, hitting that springboard and taking flight. And then later on, we were talking about moving from one dimension to the other and not having to actually tangibly travel the journey. Right. For me, that presented as a slingshot. It was just, pulling back into the reflection, releasing from the old, and just appearing into the new without having to go through that process or that travel that journey. Just almost like teleporting. I'm here, now I'm there. And, and with that, it just elevated everything. Like the very next day, life was different opportunities opened up, different people showed up. It just elevated so going into that, I was planning a summit and still planning a summit. But the level of that summit changed the very next day, and it became the next level summit, if I can say it that way.
Perfect way to state it. Yeah, perfect way to state it. It really did. And so that session leading up to the workspace session, like I said, was amazing. So let's talk about the workspace session itself, the on-air workspace session. Let's talk about that particular one, and then we can start segueing them into what they'll be experiencing for the double feature. So let's hear about that part.
So based on that foundation, so I solidified that foundation, and then moving into that workspace session, it just built on that. I saw, I could feel I can't even remember whether we started with the throat or the chakras that got involved.
I think the solar plexus was the one that came up first. And then, you had companion chakras that were taking kind of the center stage first before actually getting into the throat. And so there was the solar plexus, and I believe that the third eye might have come in there too. Into the third eye.
Yeah, it went from solar plexus, it jumped into the third eye, it came back into the throat, and then even the heart made a subtle presence in that.
Just sudden, right.
But it's and then I saw a braid. Which was really quite profound when we looked into it, and it was weaving all of these strands together, the strands of my life. But also it related to the chakras, to the people, to the community that I'm pulling together, weaving their strengths and their expertise in. It was just it seemed like a very benign visual, but when we started looking into the dimensions of it, it came to life, is what I can say. It presented as just a braid there with 3 normal strands, like you would with a braid, and then it came to life, and it ignited. It ignited. Definitely. There was. It was almost like fireworks, and all these new strands started to appear, new colors started to appear. It was weaving together colors. It was weaving together communities. It took on multiple dimensions in that workspace.
Yes, it did.
But that was all based on the work that had been the foundations that were laid through the activations leading up to it.
Absolutely. That was perfect. And I love how you shared all that, so that when they actually are hearing it, then they can see, oh, okay, that's what she was talking about. They see how it actually was all coming together, during that time. And I think we'll include even a special bonus in the link if we are able to actually get some of the other session that we did and kind of do some work, with that. They can actually have a little peek of some excerpts. And so, of that in between session that was not actually on air. So I think
we hadn't intended for that to be a public event.
Right. And so, but we definitely will make sure that we can maybe include a few excerpts, of that within the description. So I think, this was perfect to be able to set up for them. I'm really, really excited for them to hear this and to be able to have their own experience with the activation. So, actually on that note, I would love for you to actually, if you could maybe provide some empowerment or anything that you would want to say to them going in to listening to the first, activation.
Right.
If anything you want to provide, for that before we do actually start to, transition them for the whole experience.
I think that all I would say is it is the starting point. It is the kickoff point for this whole thing. The level 2, level 3 wouldn't have been as impactful if I hadn't done that activation and got the energy moving first.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just invite people to experience this.
Yes.
What we're putting together here, but all because it was my journey through this activation, but then to have their own experience with it.
Yes.
And their experience will be very different from mine.
Mm-hmm.
And different, it's very unique. It's a unique journey, but if you can get a sense of where it took me, it'd be interesting to see where that journey takes you.
Oh, absolutely. And we certainly want to be able to know about that. So certainly within the comment section, please share what your experience, the experience that you had with hearing and experiencing Brenda's journey, and then having, your own, because in some cases, as she mentioned, yes, it's definitely an individual thing, very unique, but sometimes there are some similarities within experiences that happen, and so things that resonate or some commonalities, you definitely can share that as well. So, okay, Brenda, so thank you for sharing that. And I will have you to gear them up and segue them into this experience.
Okay. Just to build off of what you said, AliNICOLE, I think it is a very unique experience. And by demonstrating by me going through it publicly and demonstrating that,
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that it will let people know that it's those small little things that seem very innocuous, like the braid laying there, that can expand into something phenomenal and take you to a whole new level of life. So don't discount things because you either don't understand them immediately or they seem too small.
Yeah, subtle, but they're significant, right?
They're significant. Everything that you experience is significant. My things come in very quick images, and I know to grasp onto it and write it down, and then keep going with the process. But as I look back, so I would really encourage people to go through your own activations, make those notes, let the whole thing settle. And when you revisit it, it all makes sense. And it will take you into higher and higher dimensions. I wouldn't even say it takes you into the next dimension. It will just continue.
Yes,
the more you do them, the more it will continue to lift you into those higher dimensions and change your life.
Mm-hmm. So the activation that wants to come forth at this time is all around being commissioned to communicate. And we're going to be spending time with new dimensions of your throat chakra. Going to ask that everyone take a nice deep breath, please. So we want to just get settled in for this time of activation, and I'm looking forward to facilitating this, and I'm going to take some time to get present so that I can receive the wisdom and insight for the activation. And as I'm being in the receptive mode, I just want you to be present and be very aware that there's a newer emergence of your calling to communicate during this season and phase of your life and journey. Such unique expressions that are ready to come forth. These are the source level communications that need to be broadcast in the world at large, especially during these times. And you are that unique vessel that's here to pour out, to communicate in a variety of forms, not just by way of your voice, but your penmanship. It's just a unique expression, but you are being commissioned. It's a higher charge and challenge that's underway. And most of you find your resonance with this because you've been feeling it deeply, even been experiencing things with your voice on multiple levels. Let's take a deep breath, please. So the awareness that you need to focus in on is all around the new, and even new understandings as it relates to your energy body and primarily right now your throat chakra, as we're going to be entering into new dimensions. And the dimension that's coming forth right now is about the gateway of your truth. The gateway of your true voice that needs to be activated during this time as you are being commissioned. Take 3 nice deep breaths, please. So 2 colors that are coming up during this time are actually teal blue and kind of an aqua color, be a teal greenish, leading into an aqua. And actually the turquoise energy is coming up. So we're starting off as sort of 2 primary colors, but then they're expanding. This is the dimensions, the dimensions. So also, besides color therapy, some sound therapy is coming into play. So I'm going to ask that you be extremely present with my voice. And this therapy, as I've stated in other activations, is not so much of therapy in terms of the healing aspect. It is more of the therapeutic aspect, which does bring forth healing as well. But this is what is going to go forth from you in terms of what you communicate for others in a variety of forms. And it's what they're going to be feeling and sensing. It's the higher frequencies of why you are actually being commissioned and the importance of your articulation during this time. And again, this is in multiple formats. This will be shifting and changing so many dynamics on so many different levels globally for so many people. What you bring forth will be activating the higher human potential in others through what you communicate. Again, be present. Be present with my voice, with the cadence, with the rhythm, with the frequencies. Some of you may begin to feel your body sway as you are really connected to the rhythm of life, the rhythm of source, the rhythm of all that is for your highest and best good and for the good of this planet. Take a nice deep breath, please. So now we're going to be present with these dimensions of your throat chakra. And during this time, you may actually isolate one of those colors or other colors may come up for you. And I want you to just be present within the therapeutic essence of those colors. Take 3 deep breaths, please. So I'm going to invite you to complete this statement as you gain wisdom from this dimension of your throat chakra. I am being commissioned to blank during this time. I am being commissioned to blank during this time. Whatever comes up is going to be key to opening up your communication factor of what your greater charge is. So continue to be present in the color essence. Be present with the statement of completion. And again, be very present with the sound of my voice. So a time of stillness and silence is being called forth to be experienced just for a very short window, and maybe a few seconds or a minute. But we're going to honor that invitation right now. Take a deep breath. And let's breathe. And because that silence was not long, that is an indication that there's a unique pause that you will give to just create a new sacred space trajectory for others. So as you are preparing to go forth in this new commission, you are going to be preparing in an accelerated way, but then there's going to be a moment where you pause. It'll just be a quick pause, and that may be to reassess and level up and realign at a higher vantage point for what is going to come forth next. So let's be more present with the energy of this dimension of your throat chakra. At this time, I feel about 3 dimensions expanding. And we are going to be present with those as if they are 3 different chambers of commission. And this is all about the communication factor. And so what's coming up now is that these 3 chambers, one is around your voice, and that is the vocal aspect. Another is around your written communication. And another one is around your beingness, the instrument of self. So let's be present in this first dimension. So complete the following statement. Using my voice, I am currently being commissioned to communicate. You fill in the blank. What is that? What are you currently being commissioned to communicate? You can write that down if you have note-taking material near you. So what's coming up for you? Using your voice, what are you currently being commissioned to communicate? Take a deep breath. We're going to quickly accelerate and shift into the second dimension. I'm going to ask that you complete the following statement. Through my writing, what am I currently being commissioned to communicate? Through my writing, what am I currently being commissioned to communicate? I feel strong colors coming up, and you may start sensing that or seeing that, being aware. So there's colorful communication that needs to take place in a very creative and expressive way in terms of what that written communication will be. It's where a flow of your artistry, leveraging your oral, not your oral, but your written communication. But what's happening is that, here we go. What's happening is that that is going to be sort of the launching pad of what brings greater illumination to the vocalization. So that's why the oral aspect of your communication was trying to actually get in on this particular one. I love how the integration starts to happen. Those energies make their essence so known, at least to me. And I know, oh, that's why that's taking place. So the starting point, there's, oh, thank you. There's already an ordering of how this will play out. So the writing element is going to be the lead into your voice. And then from that level of communication is the higher expression of the beingness. So let's be present for just a few more moments that you can gain some more insight and wisdom around the written aspect. And then we will shift into the dimension of the throat chakra and your beingness. It just makes so much sense just thinking about that. Okay, take a nice deep breath, please. Okay, so let's shift into the dimension of your throat chakra, of the beingness aspect. And what are you commissioned or currently being commissioned to communicate through your way of beingness? How you are showing up, how you are just living and expressing your existence. What are you being commissioned to communicate through your way of beingness? This is demonstrating that higher form of livelihood, that true connection to source, that instrument of self and source that ultimately is the higher instrument of service that you are bringing to your tribe, but also contributing to the collective higher intent of humanity as a whole. In this commission is a courageous commission that you must be committed to at the very core of your beingness. It's a call to excellence and higher character of virtue in this communicative expression. Take a nice deep breath, please. Be very present, again, with the rhythm and the cadence of this experience through the therapeutic experience that's taking place right now through the sound and the colors and the commission. And now you should be sensing a core theme of this greater charge around your commission that challenges you to actually put this into a framework, leading with the written communication commission, then expanding and illuminating your commissioned voice and what that message or messages will be. And then ultimately, in a grand finale, in a sense of the beingness, which will be the consistency of your demonstration for this greater impact. Take a deep breath, please. So being present, what is the charge? What is the core theme of this charge? Your core commission, tying all of this together. Be present with the energy of your throat chakra and ask, if that clarity is not there for you, ask your throat chakra in this three-dimensional way. What is the core overarching theme for my soul's communication commission at this phase? Take a deep breath. Just be present with that. And now we're going to take all of what has come forth in this experience, and we are going to quickly anchor and activate. So I want you to hold the higher space of that three-dimensional throat chakra initiative, all of the wisdom, insights that have come up, even if they were just in basic awareness and shorthand form of communication. We're going to take all of this right now, and we are going to now anchor this at the source core level, the source communication, and activate this as this awakens now in your new energy body format, going throughout your anatomy. And now you go forth in your commission to be all things to all that you are called to serve and make a greater impact. So your charge is to be courageously committed to this commission. Take 3 nice deep breaths, please. Right. And we are complete. Thank you. So I'd like to welcome you to Commission to Communicate Your New High-End Connection Factor. This is an on-air workspace session, and I am AliNICOLE WOW. And today I am beyond thrilled because my colleague and dear friend, and she's also one of my emerging celebritypreneurs, Brenda Jacobson, and I just simply adore her, and we've done tons together. And I'm grateful that we're going to be working together today within this space. And so I just want to give sort of a preface to some of what has been done already. Brenda and I have done a few sessions around this core focus, and how this developed was from my commission to communicate your higher throat chakra activation, customized VIP weekend intensives. And so Brenda and I have done work around this, and now we're really ready to bring more of the high-end energy into this as we start the master planning aspect, because we're ready to bring this into fruition during this time that we're going to have together. And so what took place prior to what we're doing today in some of those sessions, even before the sessions that we had, Brenda had listened to my commission to communicate through the gate of your true voice. And this was a throat chakra activation for the higher throat chakra activations. And we get into, different dimensions. And she also listened to the speaking your spotlight source communications is around the signature message. And also I had provided her with a playlist that was for the signature spotlight speaking. So it was a series of videos that she listened to. And from there, that's where we were able to sort of customize her sessions so that we could do that based off of the wisdom and insight that came up for her by her listening to those renderings. So one of the sessions that we did, we spent some time in 3 dimensions of her throat chakra's wisdom. And this is what we're going to be kind of expounding upon today. And I'm excited because we're going to create more of this kind of cohesive initiative in a master plan, really as a jumpstart initiative, I should say. This is kind of like a first phase of her really beginning her commission to communicate, in this way. So I also want to mention that there's going to be information within the description, and you'll actually be able to learn more about the commission to communicate your higher voice in the throat chakra way, that activation, and the VIP intensives that I provide for that. And so I do want to share just a little bit about this, and I'm sure Brenda will speak some to this, as well. But this type of experience is really designed to help these new emerging leaders. And when I say emerging leaders, they're not new to leadership. It's that they are on the emerging edge of their compelling greatness in this higher way to leverage the communication factor. And this is really about the cultivation through what comes up in these 3 dimensions of the voice. And it's all about bringing forth these 3 levels of a master message. And this is from the speaking communications aspect. And then there's the written communications aspect that brings out more of the higher authority. And normally it's kind of the segue into what that speaking voice will be at that mastery level. And then in the 3rd dimension that we go in, it is really about the new way of beingness. And this new way of beingness, in a sense, is what produces the consistency of the communication expression. And so also there's going to be a link to that activation within the description, and also the playlist that I've mentioned. And you can learn more about Brenda and myself. So without no more delays, I want to thank Brenda for being here to share this time and space and make this available even for the public to benefit from. Thank you, Brenda.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. I always have such a profound experience when we do these workspaces.
Yes.
And it's just it's a nice opportunity to both, as we've talked about this before, to both be the teacher and the student in this. To me, that is the multiple dimensions of learning, is when you can actually encompass both of those roles at the same time.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
That's what I experience when we get together for these.
Oh,
I never know quite what we're going to do.
What we're going to do, right?
It's, it's powerful.
Oh, thank you. And I co-sign with you, and the feeling is doubly mutual because even when I'm facilitating, I am still learning and evolving, and
Yeah.
being in the present moment where the power is where there's so much of the potential. And so, as you know, even when we are consulting or we are coaching, often there's a mirror reflection component also of elements that even the facilitator can evolve from as the process is happening, because things can come up and say, oh, that, I've kind of see that for myself too, so it's that
Yeah.
as you say, that learning. But I always enjoy the co-facilitation that we do together, on so many different levels. And it is always an honor, especially being in this seat here, to help you evolve and expand this next level of what's coming up for you. So I'm really excited about where this could go today.
Yeah, me as well.
Yeah. So before we actually start really segueing into really talking about the higher commission to communicate vantage point as it relates to the high end aspect, and learning how to use these different dimensions to develop your new high end factor for communication, would you like to talk any about the activation processes and what you were doing before, leading up to this point, even as it relates to the three different dimensions? Because I know in another conversation, you were mentioning about how sometimes with the communication factor, most only think about the speaking context, but you get into the speaking, writing, and the way of beingness. So if you want to share anything about that before we get started, I definitely would love to hear.
It is. It's, I think traditionally we think of communication as verbal, as our verbal communication. And I think you're right. It is preceded now. A lot of people don't do this, but for me, the writing component has really come on strong in helping me to gather my thoughts, to dig out that inner knowing that is sometimes hiding in the corners within you. And I think everybody has this, and really just illuminating that part of it and bringing that up into an activation,
right?
Where it becomes a very active component of my communication. It feeds into the verbal communication. And but the really profound piece for me was just the beingness, just realizing that the way I'm being, if I never wrote a word and I never opened my mouth, my presence, the way I'm being communicates an enormous amount. And I think that that's been present a lot through my life. I just didn't recognize it for the profoundness that it brings to that realm of communication.
Right. No, that was well stated. Yeah. Definitely well stated. And it's good to be able to have these different levels of that communication factor going. And that's what's really ultimately being created and cultivated, is one's own unique factor. And how do top leaders, especially like yourself, bring their next level of authority for greater impact and income? And that's where the higher end advantage comes, because many have great messages and inspire and empower many, and have tremendous, works that add really tremendous value to others. But in a divine right value exchange of how you are able to put yourself out there, so that there is the divine right value exchange, where the time that it is taken to cultivate the gifts and the journey to now meet up with this higher level of mastery, and then come into the marketplace where in these different dimensions that you can serve, different levels. And so we're definitely going to, explore some of that, today. So I believe the best place to begin, which I'll give you an opportunity before we actually move into this, you can share anything else that you would like to before we get started. But initially, what I'm sensing is that we will definitely do kind of an overview of what you had already been previously working on, and then we'll start touching more into the higher end advantage. And I'm definitely sensing that we are going to spend some time in the dimensions for this higher end advantage from the connection point. But before we get started, within that, definitely I would love anything else you would love to add, or say before we, jump into this?
Okay. It was really quite profound when I did the activations. It was very tangible, how it moved me from one level to an elevated level through that. And not only just within myself, but the world around me changed. So as you know, I was in the process of planning a summit, on this topic on women influencing brilliance.
Right.
And after that activation, almost immediately after the activation, it took it to a whole new level. And people started showing up that were supporting that new vibration of the summit. And I still haven't, this is fairly recent. So I'm still kind of mesmerized by where this is going, because it's not effort on my part to bring it to that level. It is happening. It is happening around me. And I'm almost more like a participant in it than a leader in it.
Right.
Because it's just so easy. Like it's just happening with such ease and grace.
Oh, absolutely. I love that you brought
very
that up.
Different vibrations between what the plan was and what,
what the emergence
and what the plan became the next minute.
Exactly, right. Because it has the evolutionary edge to it, which is a continual expansion. And that's what we have to allow within the creations that really metamorphosize and evolutionize themselves. And then they come into an optimized, process to be carried out.
Yeah.
And so I love what you brought up in terms of feeling more like a participant than a leader. And the thing about it is because your essence and vibration is what is leading. And so within that, it allows you to just be in your beingness and be a participant, be active in what is unfolding. And when you are participating, instead of focusing so much on being the leader, so to speak, in the leading energy, because you're already on the leading edge, right? Into the next dimension. And so the experience itself is the leader, is the chief, and that's the higher vibration. And so when we participate, that means that you get to be more conscious and intentional, right? And so within that, you have to be more awake to what's going on. And of course, with you and your, your higher primary work and awakening consciously, and you having to actually take that to a new level within this context of what you're doing. And so all of what has ensued so far is the leading energy. And then it allows you to just be effortless and being flow, versus the figuring and I got to lead. And so you are leading for sure, but you have other leading energies that are showing up in their unique giftings to participate accordingly. So it's just kind of a beautiful, beautiful puzzle being put together.
It is. And it's amazing to watch it evolve in that way.
Yes, and to feel it, right?
It
definitely is. You can definitely feel that. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. And hey, being able to be flexible, as I say, leave room always for divine editing. You can have a plan for sure. And plans, I know, are more like just seeds of conception there, but they have to germinate to see what is actually going to materialize. They have an encoding no different than an oak tree. An acorn has the encoding of an oak tree. So we don't mistake what the conception is for the overall plan. And so even when doing the summit or whatever else is emerging, is that these are all conceptual energies or seeds that are growing into something much more, in a harvest factor. And so it's the journey that you'll see that brings it all into that. So with that being said, I want to actually talk about something really quick that came up in one of the sessions. And when we were doing sort of a customized activation for you, and you were in the slingshot of the experience, and we were in, those dimensions of your throat chakra, and you felt like you were what was going to catapult you in terms of, we were coming up with like what was a vehicle, what was something that you were sensing. And for you, it was the slingshot. And we said the slingshot, that's the most organic and natural, progression, and no mechanics, around that. And so what came up from that in terms of you going back and reflection and then pulling yourself back. And then I asked you to imagine yourself going forward, being, springing forward, but not necessarily feeling the in-betweenness, just already being in what would be that next dimension. And you already saw kind of a fuller context. And so from there, that was the unknown because the mystery energy was coming up. But there was so much that came up during that time that then we started kind of formulating what some in-between summits or so, or summit products and things could be. And the what was it, the Springboard Your Success or something around that. So I know we'll probably, play with some of that today. So would you like to start sharing from some of your notes, maybe of a few things that we discussed and something that maybe jumps out at you that we can, kind of start, and then we'll segue into more of the higher end context?
Absolutely. It was, we were working through the 3 dimensions. And initially in the writing side, what came up was this just brilliant light, just illuminating everything. But what also came up in that is the reflection. Yes. And as we delved deeper into that, it was not leaving everything from the past behind, but reflecting on what is really important to bring forward with us.
Yes, right.
And what's ready to move into that new vibration. So that was really important. And I had to laugh because as we moved on, that was where the springboard came in, and a lot of those things were happening in that writing dimension. But as we moved on into the beingness is where the slingshot.
Yes, where the slingshot came in, right?
And when we talked about that, the slingshot, you have to pull back. You have to pull back, pull back, pull back. That's actually where the effort is in the pulling back and looking at. And that, to me, that was the reflection piece. That was the pulling back and looking at, what do I need to bring with me? But, when you're ready to take that step forward, it's effortless. The slingshot does all the work.
That's right. That's right.
That's what I experienced there.
Yes. Yeah. And that was amazing. Just being in that space with you, during that time. Yeah. And and just the unfolding of it, and then all of what was materializing, because even from the writing piece, there came then the opportunity to do the reflection journal, and how we talked about you would be creating that, and even in between, we would do some type of behind the scenes to leading up to that being published, and then what would happen after that, and how an MP3 could come, and then just other things, the higher context of the speaking. But then we also touched briefly on how this then leads into this new way of beingness. And so I'm really, like I said, excited, but the writing element was the component, or was the aspect that came up even within the initial activation, that you listened to, that the writing was going to be the leader. And so that would be where people would actually start to write, write their way, the WRITE, had the right way to speak your message, is to allow some elements of the writing to be that chief vehicle that then opens up the doors, the key or the gateway, in a sense, to what the higher speaking context will be. That by the time you're actually producing and speaking your master message, the book won't have the relevance to that higher message, but it will be what is the leading up, to that. So
then the speaking can take on multiple dimensions of reflection.
Absolutely.
So based on the writing, what started coming out was just multiple dimensions of reflection. And, we looked we looked into the treasure chest, and all of the different colors of the chakras came out,
Right.
Where, especially around the solar plexus and the sacral. So we saw
energy,
the elevation and the expansion, and the creativity from all of that could come then into all of that speaking. And just the springboard came in there and just elevating to that higher truth.
Right.
And and again, with the springboard, the slingshot, both are somewhat effortless once you hit that. And I felt that when I when the visual came to me, is that you hit that springboard and then you just take flight. Like then
absolutely,
then you just show up in that other dimension without having to think about it or plan it, or, set your goals, set your targets, do all the left brain stuff. You just get
allow
elevated.
the journey to unfold and be present with something we had talked about too, working with what you already know and the knowledge that's present, and allowing that to expand and evolve, and then allowing one step to be the step you need to focus on, and then it expands. So it was like getting into that mystery of the unknown, but also reverse engineering it in a sense of kind of seeing what's going to materialize, but not focused on how you got to that point. And so each step, in a sense, produces that effortlessness in the slingshot and the springboard, initiative.
Well, and especially when the slingshot came in, because once you've done the reflection and you're ready to move forward, it's just it's that release. It's that release. And this is what I experienced in that it was that one step to release it. And then I just appeared. You appeared
in the next dimension.
In the next dimension. There was no traveling to get there. It was just the release happened and I appeared in a totally different environment.
Absolutely. A subtle yet significant shift. And what the realization happens is that you learn that you are already somewhere where you probably think you aren't. And a lot of times it is a shift in awareness and being able to see what is not there, what's there, but you're not really seeing it. But when
you're not illuminated, right?
Right, exactly. And so what happens, even when you think about, let's talk about the chakras for a moment, because that's one of your major primary works, in the chakra. And then the journey you've had with me, where you've been learning more about these different, dimensions and being able to start decoding, on a higher level, is that when people first visit the chakras, or they have knowledge about it, or they have this one-dimensional focus in terms of what that means. But within these different contexts, it produces different functionalities, different foundations, formations, and then different functionalities. So there's different fundamentals around it. So if we could see life like that, and our business or whatever the area is, when we can see it like that, we can understand that there are new dimensions always presenting themselves to us, but we have to look beyond where we are, or sense beyond where we are, and kind of suspend the current understanding so that we can be introduced to the more evolutionary expansion. And so that's what really this experience does. And we'll, spend some time doing this today so that you can also be in the realization of your own high-end advantage that's already here and already present. So being able to now, make the connection to that for yourself, but also the connection that then moves into the audience space, the dimensions of the audience, because there's some that are going to connect to the writing, some that are going to connect to variations of the speaking, like some with an MP3 product, but then some who are going to be ready for that higher end virtual speaking, higher end live speaking, or masterminds, or however that comes about. So so I'm looking forward to playing in that, like I said, that today. So before we jump into doing some of the chakra, the throat chakra work around that, and also seeing if any companion chakra energy comes up, is there anything that's jumping out to you in terms of what has been developed so far, anything that we've talked about so far that you would like to, play around on, and maybe we can start to do some level of master planning and then segue into the higher dimensions of the throat chakra for the high-end advantage?
Well, we had talked about a number of different things in there. We talked about Springboard Your Success and the summit part of it, and having that as a speaking opportunity, but also having that based on a book that I'm going to write around, I don't know what it's, Slingshot, Success Factor, or we were playing with a lot of different elements of that, and there's they're still kind of marinating for me.
Yeah. So would you like to play in, that area now? And okay. So yeah, so we can,
absolutely.
So we can do that. So before we get started, let's take a deep breath. Okay. Okay. Always love to do the deep breathing. Yeah. Just brings that new life energy into the space. So let's be present with what's coming up right now already is, I already feel like there's going to be a segue from what we're talking about in terms of the initial slingshot, your success, or the springboard, your success, or however, that there's already a higher end advantage speaking to this, even in the dimensions of just creating it in this base. So let's be present with this. And I'm going to ask you, just kind of in your mind's eye or just in your awareness, to kind of almost visualize or feel that this is actually communicating to you. And whatever feeling comes up, or so, let's talk about that, whatever comes up. So it's almost as if this springboard to success, or slingshot, success factor, any of those elements, giving you some type of core jumpstart initiative. So if you want to do some deep breathing, you can, to be present with that. And then you just let me know when you're ready to move forward.
What's showing up for me, and I don't know how it relates to slingshot, but what shows up is water.
Yes.
A pool of water.
Yes. Being in the flow.
Yeah. I guess that's what it is.
It is being in the flow, being in the streams of success. Okay. Different reservoirs of opportunities for people to experience this level of expansion for themselves. And so when you think about an ocean, right, and the ocean is very expansive, and you think about a lake has a certain amount of expansion, and then a pool is containerized in the sense it has, certain levels. So there are different levels of immersion and expansion that people will be ready to participate on. And so you're going to be providing sort of those streams, of success, for them. And really the streams are just the different levels there. And that's the dimensions in the sense.
Dimensions,
course,
right?
Yes. And of course, I operate, in the water element, big time. And so I'm very familiar with, creating the different streams and the different reservoirs, of value and potential. And so that's something being fluid. And the water component is more about embodying the space and what's present. So it's something that I leverage and have leveraged highly, within my own branding and my own experience, has been really being the epitome of Bruce Lee's quote, "Be water." And so when you think about water is able to take on the shape of whatever it's poured into. And so you pour water into a cup, it takes on the embodiment of a cup. If it's in a pool, it takes on that. So you have to be very fluid in the functionality of how you create. And you and I have actually had a few conversations around this way. So you can create things in dimensions and let them take on the expansion that it needs for a particular niche audience. So whether you're creating for empaths, whether you're creating for leaders, or just the general public, or, just a general base, you're taking on the form of functionality to produce what is going to be required for them. So that's an embodiment in an embodiment quality. So when you're getting that water element, it is about being in the flow. But there's another component to this in terms of the connection factor, because now you're also in the currents. And it's interesting. My first career and life coach, and she's a really good friend of mine as well. Her name is Jenny Kravitz, and the name of her coaching practice is In the Current. Right?
Oh, interesting.
So when we think about the current, we can think about the flow of water, the water current, but you can think about electricity, the electricity current, right? And all of these require some type of connection. In order for the currents of the water to flow, they have to be connected to the main stream. And in order for the current in terms of electricity, it has to be plugged in. And so in being fluid in your connection points, which is what we're going to be talking about today, and how you develop more of your higher end factor, is you have to be plugged into the current of each vantage point to make this ultimate connection. So that goes back to just the whole dynamics around whether you are communicating for leaders, what is the connection point to that, and let that stream flow to you of thought and wisdom, and allow it to be in flow versus figuring energy. And then the same with whether it's empaths or just a traditional premise. Like I'll give something general, like let's say that you were creating something for self-care. And so self-care can definitely be something that is tailored to pretty much any and everybody. But then there's the different streams where there can be self-care for busy women, self-care for leaders, self-care for the empaths. So do you see how there's those different dimensions?
Absolutely.
And they're each streams. So, but each stream is going to have its own uniqueness, to it. And that's the way you want to flow, to flow your energy, to flow what you do, because these are the different streams of success that are being created for multiple streams of interest. So
it's really interesting because you and I've done a lot of work around the river, and I've had my river experiences and that flow and that acceleration. This time it presented much more like the ocean. Yeah, when you're talking about different streams, they were presented as the waves coming in.
Absolutely, that
the waves and coming to me.
Absolutely, right.
Coming to me, I'm not out looking for them, right?
Absolutely, you are the ocean.
Yeah.
And so you are the ocean, which is the premise I even started with, in terms of you think about an ocean, but then you think about all these different reservoirs, right?
Yes.
But coming back to the currents, they connect, they flow from something bigger. Like we think about ourselves, we flow from a bigger source. We are incarnation experiences of a higher source power. So it is the bigger context that we are flowing from, right? And so now coming into this whole thing around your factor, whether it's in the high end aspect or just the general premise, because it all connects. So the factor would be the bigger stream that we are connecting to. And these different levels of what your chakra, throat chakra presented are the different streams, the different dimensions. But it's how do you participate within those, what the wisdom from those dimensions, and bring that into the world. And when we say bring that into the world, that gets into the beingness energy. And it goes back to what you just said. This is not about you having to go out and, present yourself as the stream. The water is the water. People come to the beach. They come to the ocean. And why do they come to those places? For different reasons. It's refreshing. Water is life-giving, right?
Rejuvenating.
And so that's the energy that you want to illuminate and ignite in others, is those same qualities and the properties that element brings. And so we will actually be present too with the element of water as well, as we're going into these different dimensions. So it may be that's what the functionality presents itself as in those dimensions. It may present itself as streams, as the oceanic expression. I don't know yet till we're actually kind of in the space, but we can definitely be entertaining that, during this time. So with this awareness, so let's be present here, because now that has come up, we're going to suspend the water for just a moment. And I want you to kind of come into a blank slate, okay? And be present with the energy of the slingshot and the success factor aspect, the springboard. Be present with it again. It's almost like being in another dimension of it, but be present with it again, with the water kind of suspended, and see what comes up. Water may come up again, but let's just see. Let's be present with it and let me know when you're ready.
Okay.
Okay, so what has come up for you?
Light, like that's all I saw was the sun.
The sun, perfect. Yeah. Okay, so we're in the elemental factor, for you, and this is good. So we're actually, before we get into doing anything around the throat chakra aspect, we're actually going to be present in Your solar plexus. Okay. So I'm feeling that there's at least 2 dimensions of your solar plexus energy that we'll be present with. So on the awareness, I want you to close your eyes, take a deep breath. And so be present with your solar plexus energy and see your solar plexus as the sun. And so there should be some initial communication coming up. And even if it is a feeling or so, what initially, when you just put your awareness quickly on that, was it blank or did something actually come up for you?
I sensed a lot of heat.
The heat.
A lot of energy.
I can actually feel that.
Yeah, a lot of energy in there. A lot of, yeah.
Yes. So with this now, ask your, within, kind of the awareness factor, ask your solar plexus, what do you need to turn the heat up on? And it may come to you in very different ways, something about yourself, something about how you show up, your audience. Go ahead.
Jumped up, it was speaking, bigger audiences, higher level impact.
Yes.
Which
means higher level impact income.
Yeah. Yes. That's always welcome. But that's it. It's almost like the light illuminated, almost stadiums.
Yes.
Like
perfect.
large.
So write this down. Yes.
Got it.
Good. So write whatever came to you. Write that down, because all of this is going to play into this higher context of what comes up for the higher end advantage or the factor that's going to be created. And remember, I said to you that I have the feeling we're definitely going to spend some time within the dimensions of the throat chakra, but I also mentioned that some companion chakras may come into play, and that's actually coming up now. And within some of the sessions that we did, even the solar plexus energy, came up as well. And so even with mentioning that, I'll also include within the description an activation, the solar plexus activation, because you actually did that, that one too, outside of the context of this commission to communicate, aspect. Okay, so let's take 3 deep breaths, please. Okay, so we're going to go into another dimension of your solar plexus, because there was 2 that came up. And so be present with this one, because this dimension is not actually giving a context in terms of like the sun came up for the first one. This is just another dimension. So let that dimension reveal to you what the form and functionality is, or what is coming up as an awareness or however. So be present with that and communicate that when you're ready. Thank you.
Interesting. It's almost like I'm in a blank space.
Yes.
Like I don't see anything, but there's energy flowing.
There's energy.
It's almost like I'm in the eye of a storm, but not in a bad way. Like there's a lot of energy around. And I'm sitting in this calmness.
Yes. So the third eye is coming in. So we're going to be present with this, because also too, which I'm going to be, I guess, listing a whole lot of different activations in this description, because there was also the third eye activation that I did, and it was all about the calm, about the being in the eye of the third eye storm. I think you listened to that one.
I think I did a while back, but I'll tell you, things are moving so fast right now.
They are, aren't they? I know, right? Yeah.
What happened 2 days ago seems like distant memory.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so the reason why, and as I mentioned to you, this one was not coming up even in my own awareness of to initiate a form or function, it will reveal itself. So a lot of this companion energy is coming in from the different chakras. So because here we are, the solar plexus comes up, and now in this next dimension of the solar plexus, already the third eye is coming in,
Yeah.
and putting you in that more calm, is being calm in the current. So now bringing back not necessarily the water flow energy, but it is the connection energy of the current. You know, when you plug something in, it's electrical current. And remember, you said you felt energy, right?
Yes.
So we have
it's also the energy that's flowing through. It's showing me the connectedness of all of those chakras, the connectedness
absolutely
of us as an entire being.
as an entire being. So right,
all of the chakras are connected. So there is that flow.
There, absolutely. So
Yeah.
write that down, right? Write that down, because all of this, like I said, plays into this higher end context that is building. I love this. It's like cooking and building flavors in something, you know, or as you, or just as you are creating, you're just seeing the development, you know, of this take place, and we are in flow, in sync, and in flow here. So it's just a beautiful experience, definitely. So yeah, I love this. Yeah, now being connected in this energy, and as you said, that's really the entire energy body, you know, in a sense.
Yeah.
And really, that's what's happening with you right now, is you really are having a reorientation of your own new high-end energy body, you know, essence, you know, that's coming out, which would need to be, because you would actually need to have that reformatting of your own anatomy to now be able to play out this bigger expansion that you need to turn the heat up on, and you need to illuminate within these bigger stages in the different contexts. So let's be still present in this, the solar plexus energy, but now with the third eye energy. And there may be some colors that come up for you. But if not, I'm actually feeling, give me just a moment here. So there's a sound therapy aspect. So I'm going to ask you to be extremely present with my voice right now, and take 3 deep breaths. Okay. All right, so just tune into the frequency here, because there's something for you, and you may actually feel it in a sensory. So there's a message within the third eye adventure. So what is the eye of the storm? What is the calm of a situation or scenario that you are here to communicate to others during this time? What is the calm?
Two things came up: standing in your own power, and self-love.
And self-love. Okay, perfect, perfect. All right, so let's be more present with that, because this is all vibrational, and this is all the connection to this higher energy and this current flow that you are to bring out. So we're going to come at this at another frequency. So what is the calm or the eye of the storm that you are here to communicate during this time?
And there's something around owning your power.
A deeper dimension of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a deep, yes, it's expanded awareness. Go ahead.
Seems to want to be known.
Absolutely.
And I think that I'm here to work with people to stand in that space and own that space for themselves.
So let's be more present with this. Is this initially feeling like a product or some type of event, or both?
I see multiple dimensions of it. So I see an event, collaboration. Collaborate. That's interesting. The connection piece goes outside of myself.
Yes.
And starts to bring in the fact that we are all that we're all connected. And
Yes.
so kind of weaving this web. The other thing that's showing up now is this web of all of us that want to be at this, in this dimension, is creating that web between all of us, and that collaboration, and creating a bigger whole from that.
Right. Yes. And isn't that so profound? For the simple fact that we are talking about the connection factor here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And starting to create, in and from that space. And so what also is coming up, because the sound therapy, and when I say therapy, the therapy is not necessarily from a healing perspective. The therapy is like more sometimes when you go to get a massage and to be in that therapeutic space. So there's something around the calm energy and the communication factor around that brings them into this calm state. It brings them into, and the calmness could be simply in assurance and knowing that it's okay to move forward, and knowing that, oh, I feel okay about this because there's a guide here showing the way. So there's something that is very therapeutic, and they will get those tones and frequencies from what you communicate, especially verbally. And so that's when I ask you to be present, just with me, just speaking just organically, but it's source communication, because it will feed to you that higher awareness. And that's what's going to be coming through with you. So just know that there's a sound therapy component to these different dimensions of what you're going to be, what you're going to be bringing forth.
As you're talking there, the thing that came up was meditation.
Meditation. Yeah.
And as you know, I've got a series of meditations, particularly around the chakras, but it's elevating that into these new dimensions. So there will be new dimensions of this meditation,
meditation. Absolutely. And of course, you and I have some emerging works even around that.
As well. Yeah.
And so with this, it's interesting. There's something about staying here in this moment. So the third eye, let's be present with the third eye, and you can communicate what is coming up for you around that energy, or however.
Wow. Yeah. As soon as I closed my eyes, I saw just a multitude of colors, and almost like fireworks, like the explosions coming in, but they're all the colors beyond the standard colors of the chakras, but all the different dimensions of those colors are just exploding around me.
Absolutely. So write that down. Because we've got heat, we've got energy, we've got explosiveness, so there's a lot of context in this. And so when we get into being present with the dimensions that may call upon in terms of the throat chakra, which one needs to be focused on today? It may be all three dimensions that we get into, but if not, we'll just be present with it. But when we enter there, what I'm sensing is going to bring more of the cohesiveness to all of what has come up. And that from there is where we get a simple jumpstart plan, a simple jumpstart initiative to start with the high end, and we'll bring in, the publication. So take a deep breath, please. And so I want you to be present with both the energy of the solar plexus chakra and the third eye chakra, and ask if there's anything else you need to know before moving forward. Is there any other commission to communicate aspect that you need to become aware of before you enter into the throat chakra, or any other chakra that may come up?
It's interesting. I get a real nurturing aspect of the throat chakra from the two, because of course the solar plexus is on the one side of the throat, and the third eye is on the other side.
So you're fortified, you're supported.
Absolutely. But it's almost like parenting is what comes to mind, is like these other two chakras are just hugging that throat chakra, and just pouring love into that
Yes,
throat
it's the
chakra.
support.
Yeah.
Yes, perfect. Okay, great. Write that down. Definitely write that down. And then, so what's happening then is it is time to actually enter into that dimension, because if the throat chakra energy came up, that is, yeah, the invitation pulling forward, and the communication is that the solar plexus, yes, and the third eye are like, we got you covered, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Surprised the heart didn't try to get in there and like
Probably
make
where the
its
love
way.
came in, like
That's where
that.
the love came in. Okay,
Yeah.
right. So yeah, that's
It
great.
was there. It might not have been front and center, but it was
Front and
there.
center, but it was present. Yeah, definitely. Great. And as you're writing it down, something I want to say, to give some more context for those, you know, who will be hearing this, is that the work that I do with the chakras, because I'm a multidimensional chakra decoder and recoder, and primarily for the new ascended anatomy. So that's where my higher authority is. And I have works that are called the New Colors and New Dimensions, and it is taking individuals into the different dimensions of their chakras, and also new formations and new foundations, new formations, new functionalities come into play. There's just new fundamentals around this context. But what often happens is within some of going into these different dimensions, the new colors come alive. And so though one chakra may primarily be traditionally known for being a particular color, in these different dimensions, multiple colors, or it can come out of format, you know, for sure, or you can have these different contexts of those colors be revealed. So I just wanted to, you know, just to share that as well. So let's go ahead and be present. I feel that this is going to be very accelerated in terms of what happens in the throat chakra chamber or chambers. And it will reveal to you whether we are going into all three dimensions, or if there is just a dimension that comes to you. It may be that the speaking throat, the speaking dimension, or the writing dimension, or the beingness dimension. So it will reveal to you where to begin, or if that's where we are going to spend some time and then develop more of the high-end vibration from that. So take a deep breath, please.
Immediately I saw a braid.
A braid?
Yeah.
Okay, write that down. Write that
three
down.
strands.
Three strands. So it's connected. Okay. So,
Yeah.
all right. So here we go. So what's going to be is that it's all connected. So instead of going into each dimension, here's where the acceleration happens. Oh, this is so beautiful. So instead of going into separate dimensions of the speaking, the communication, the writing, the beingness, this is about cohesiveness, it's together. And so it's going to give you some type of core theme or context of just, you know, initially what this could be. So that's what we want to be present, because that's going to be the higher level of commission in terms of what we need to start with as it relates to this higher end factor. And then we will come and bring in all of the other components that have come up today, how that will start to weave into that braid. So now be present with your throat chakra and let the format be the braid. And so just be present with that braid, and whatever starts, the communication factor comes to you, then you communicate that when you're ready, and we can proceed from there.
I'm seeing multiple dimensions of the braid now. So I started out obviously with the three dimensions that we were working with: the writing, the speaking, and the beingness. But that quickly elevated to to bringing other energies into it, other people's energies, other energies of other dimensions, almost otherworldly dimensions. That are bringing and almost just adding strands to the braid. So it's not three strands anymore.
No, right.
It's multiple strands. I've never done a braid with multiple strands, but
Mhm.
multiple strands of the braid that bring in community.
Yes.
It brings in worlds beyond this, worlds beyond what we're used to.
Yes, and those worlds beyond what we are used to. What I'm sensing, it is more in the context of the unknowns of the unknowns of the unknowns within the human experience, that people will start to come into awareness about this for themselves. And that really is discovering themselves as multidimensional beings. We are worlds beyond worlds, even within ourselves. And there is higher support of awareness that brings you that greater comfort and guidance, in a sense. And all these different strands are the different strands of success, the different strands that individuals can slingshot themselves or can springboard themselves. There's these different strands. And so when we look at this, just say from a impact income perspective, from a leader or a business owner. So you start looking at what are the different strands that are all going to weave together. So we have, let's say, a publication, we have an MP3, we have events, we have communities, we have just different things. So you see these different levels and how this all kind of fits into a whole. And when that's happening, you are going to have the joining of other worlds. So the joining of other worlds is other people's worlds, So this connection through collaboration aspect that comes in is the braiding, is that, yes, because when you build one community and then there's this merger of energy, it's all coming together. Whoever participates within it, you're bringing multiple worlds by just looking at just people in general. You're bringing their unknown potential into the space, your unknown potential into the space, your audience's unknown potential into the space. And all of this is weaving in, but there's these different strands, and that's what we need to, focus on in terms of now this higher end advantage. So what I'm going to, invite you to do at this point, so that you can have that multi-communication factor going on these different levels, bring in the high-end, my publication, the new high-end branding factor. And okay. And so get you to bring that up.
I've got it here. Got it right here.
Okay, perfect. So just you holding that, is there an energy or an essence that is presenting itself to you, or you look at it, or so? Is there anything that comes up for you? And it may guide you to go into there, but just be present with it for just a moment.
I can feel a lot of energy around this, and I can't put it into words. I can't say it's in this dimension or that dimension, but it's like humming. It's buzzing in my hands.
Perfect. So it's humming. Okay, that's great. So there's the hummingbird energy coming in here too. That's a high-end expression. So good. I know how to definitely play with that for sure. So yeah, write all that down. And then so after you write that down, then allow yourself to be guided to something within the publication. And we're going to start to tie these different strands in. And I'm sure we'll be doing this more outside of this on-air workspace. But the purpose of this is to start bringing some framework so we can create at least an initiative master plan to move forward. So you go ahead and be present with, with the publication and however you're guided.
Okay, just want me to open it up?
Yeah, well, however the guidance leads.
See where it opens up.
Yeah.
All right. It opened up to a page of questions.
Okay, so whatever question or questions jump out at you are ones that the audience of interest is going to have that same curiosity, even if it's you having it.
So the question, this has a number of questions, 6 or 7 different questions on the page. The question that jumped out at me is, what would my ideal high-end lifestyle look like in this phase of my life?
So let's be present with that.
Okay.
Yes. So what is coming to you initially for you And it could just be a context, a word, or a feeling, and then we'll be present with what are you feeling from the tribe that's asking that same question. So let's be present with you and you answer that.
I feel, I feel surrounded by feminine energy.
Okay.
Which is really interesting for me because I spent my life in corporate finance in the boardrooms within the corporate walls, which is very masculine, at least through that time. And it still, I think, is very masculine energy. And so to feel this comfort within the feminine energy is really where it's a very different experience for me. But it's a lovely experience. That feminine energy is that energy of love and compassion and collaboration. And that's what I feel surrounded by.
Awesome. So that's a higher level commission. And that is actually going to be more of your higher end communications factor to do the connection, to connect more with women. And there will be men that come into that space who are ready for that feminine nurturing energy,
absolutely.
That came up as well, because they're ready to embrace, that part of themselves, because they know that moving forward, those are going to be the structures and the frameworks that they need to live by. And so really what's coming up right now is that this is more so about the life that people need to create for themselves. And then the cohesiveness, obviously, of whatever their primary mission is that they feel. So it is really a commission to communicate about the lifestyle factor advantage, which is, I'm excited about that, because that's one of my primary energies that I, create from, is you have to really create the life structures first. And then allow everything else to fill in. So that's where we are going to play more with you, of course, in the celebritypreneur, space, because, within really the first module or so within that context, as you know, focuses on building the lifestyle roadmap. So that's where we're going to dig in more with you, is now really starting to create the life structure that's required, and then how the rest of everything else fits in. Then this will be your own slingshot success advantage, in a sense. And this will be your own springboard. It's springboarding from the new life structures that are going to be created. And so it is about being present with this high-end lifestyle experience, then creating it from there. So let me just give a little context to this, so that those listening to this can understand a little bit more what this is about. So what this looks like is that you determine the type of life that you want to have, what is going to be to your highest advantage. Don't think about the job that you, or your career. Think about the life that you desire to have, that you feel is most aligned for you. When you put those structures in place and have a good context of what that is, now allow what the occupation or your life's calling, mission, work in that way to now fill into that, versus a lot of times you pick your career and then you build your life around the career. This is the opposite. You build your life and then you allow that. So let's take Brenda, for example, here, as we're working with her around this today. So Brenda knows that she is called to, commissioned to do the bigger stage speaking in various ways, in various different dimensions. So with having even that awareness, what would her life need to look like? So she actually does not need a business with a very busy life, busy structure. She needs to be in flow and be very fluid and be very flexible. So those are things that within her life structures will build to the higher end advantage. Then from there, there's an audience that is desiring this same element. So how will she actually make a connection to communicate that to them? Well, by first the demonstration in her own life, and as she's building this new part of the journey for herself, she is then being able to turn around and share that with others very organically, of how they get started just in the Jumpstart initiative. Does that resonate, Brenda?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So
and when you're talking like that, it's got such a feeling of ease and grace, is the only way I can describe it. It's, other times when people are telling me plan my life and how to set goals and how to move forward, there's been a pressure around it. Where there's just that flow.
Right.
Ease and grace. And it feels right. Like in my solar plexus, it feels like that is what's igniting my power.
Absolutely. And that's it. And that, now write that down. Write that down. What's igniting your power? Because now we come back to what you actually had written down when you were present in not the sun energy, but the I'm trying to remember which dimension it was, where the power came of showing people how to step into their power or own their power. You had
that was in the third eye when we were in the eye of the storm.
Right. And so that's the calm energy, right? And so then when the thing about what would you be now communicating, what is the calm that you were here to communicate? What is that? And it was around the power. So here we are. This is where it is being able to bring now that there's an ease about being able to create your life from, this higher place, and understanding that it can be done with ease. It can be life on your own terms, because this is about your unique alignment. And this is the high end advantage, because that's going to bring you the aligned structures for lucrative success. And when I say lucrative success, I'm really talking from a holistic vantage point, because that's what lifestyle is. It's that what is congruent and aligned for your higher end advantage, that then will also position you for the high end impact and income. Because there's a lot of people who are doing high end work, and they're slaving to the bones to do it. It's not with grace and ease. And it's not also sometimes in the most aligned ways. Which is why I created, the new high end way of beingness, so to speak. So this igniting, the calmness that ignites, in the sense that is giving people this higher place of power and authority, that I am the creator of my reality. And I don't actually have to create it according to what the structures are or the different premises. I can be present in these new dimensions of my beingness, and then start to create from there. And that's what a person would use as a springboard to get started. That's what they would slingshot themselves into, being in the flow versus the figure. So in kind of a master planning context, in terms of this, as we are planning this aspect for you, the other strand is that we're going to be planning that same aspect for your ideal audiences of interest. So that would be what we would start working on. And all of this, because what's interesting is that there's so many different strands, but again, they all braid together. So whether you are focusing on the strand of the lifestyle entrepreneur, the business owner who needs to embody more of the lifestyle aspect, the empath, whoever it is, these are different strands, but they all flow from one stream. So you think about a braid, even with the different strands, had to have a connection to something at some point to start wrapping them together. But even if not, is being joined into now is making the source, if you will. If it's different strands being brought from other places, then it's all combining into a unique source factor. So what we're going to do is, in the writing dimension and in the speaking dimension and in the beingness dimension, we're going to start to create offerings from there, and we're going to do it in the higher end context. So that's going to be kind of the overall arching plan and structure that we will flow from. And what I see this will materialize into more into leveraging what we'll do with you in the celebritypreneur space, which is a different context, so very cool. So I'm excited about that. So I feel we're good to sort of pause here and just have maybe some summarization or so before closing out for this particular one. So let's just be present with the space again, and just everything that has ensued so far, all of the chakra communications and just all the wisdom and insight. I'm going to give just a general thanks for those awarenesses, but just be present. And Brenda, whatever comes up for you is some initial kind of wrap up here. Would love for you to communicate, that, and then we can summarize and close this out.
just feel a real sense of joy
Mm.
in doing this work. And
Mhm.
As we say in all of our work, none of this was planned. Like, I did not even know that AliNICOLE was going to take me through this process or what it was going to look like. So all of this is very raw for me and very authentic. And it just amazes me how easily things come together when you release and get into this level of vibration
Mhm.
for people. So just, now I feel very inspired to be moving forward,
Yeah, the
developing
slingshot,
these
right?
products that have come out of this, right?
Yes.
So it's so just from this one session, it's given me a path to follow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's great. Yes. A strand of success to be the springboard. And this is all that this is really it's foundational. It is the springboard to now start building this level of your, I would say your slingshot success factor. And then from this higher vantage point, but with the most important component first, is the life that you're here to express. And now thinking about what that is, does that look like, you are working one day a week, traveling? How does that, do we build the lifestyle first from the higher vantage point? And then we allow the higher context of everything that we've talked about today that's come up, how this formulates into the master work that will come forth. So there could be that there's a lot of products that are produced, some more publications that, and then leading into more of doing higher end speaking events and your own summits on another level. So there's all these different dimensions, but we're just going to, in our master planning initiative, start with the life structures first, and then, then build from there. So I think that that's a great high-end master planning, and to make the connection. So you are connecting with others through the calm of the awareness of their greatness and showing them what's possible, because sometimes we don't know what's possible, especially when it's an unknown territory, you've never done it. And without having to have have anxiety around this, be apprehensive around it, people can now know that they can be calm in any scenario to move forward into this greater unknown. So that's what you're here, the slingshot, springboard them into their unknown greatness. Mm-hmm.
Very, very profound. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking me through this. I love being the demo person.
Absolutely. You definitely are, for sure. And I appreciate sharing, like you said, sharing your experience. And I'm looking forward to our on-off, sessions as well, to bring this more to fruition. And so everyone stay tuned, because
we'll see what emerges from it.
We'll
see. It is, I think this is the way of the future, where we, in this higher elevation, where so much can happen in such a brief period of time when you get into that, allowing it to come to you, and just allowing
coming from you, really.
Right. But allowing it to emerge. It is really, illuminating what's already in you. This is what I feel with me, but it's illuminating what's already in me, and just allowing it to express itself.
Right. That's the beingness.
Me being the vehicle for bringing this out to the world. Absolutely.
Perfectly stated. Absolutely. That was magnificently articulated.
Thank you.
To communicate.
There you go. And it wasn't from me. It wasn't planned words, as you can see, as I stumbled my way through. It's trying to interpret. It's trying to interpret the energy that's emerging from me and putting it into language.
Absolutely. And that's the beautiful thing. I want to speak to that really briefly, is that, and Brenda has heard me talk about this before, when I say that the receptive mode that most will find themselves in is really going to be more of the uploading coming from you than it is even the downloads that come within. And so, as I've mentioned to her in other conversations, this is not about channeling energy. This is, or communications. This is what's actually coming up from within. It's the knowingness, the acknowledgement, the embodiment and knowledge of the accumulation of your soul's archives and different things now in real time, bringing forth the communication and articulation through source communications. And so when we communicate through source communications, that's when we are able to hear and sense the different levels and the different dimensions, and it has accuracy. So something even within the sound therapy aspect, I use different contexts for everything. And when I do the source communications, as I told her, tune into my voice, or so that there's frequencies that will emit this different level of communication. But guess what? That is already within. It's just activating and making aware of knowledge and insight that is there. Insight means what is inner sight, right? It's the inner knowing, which means that the inner knowing already possesses it within. But now it is the illumination factor that brings it forth. So that's not receiving something within. It is allowing something that's emerging to come from within and out into the physical manifestation. And that's all that's happening with our lives and with everything. It's what's coming from from within, excuse me. Is
yeah. And this is where meditation becomes such a powerful tool.
Absolutely.
Because we can't hear that voice that lives deep within us unless we actually go into silence, unless we quiet all the chaos around us and go in so that we can actually hear that and release that energy. And then we have to be able to bring that and put it into language, because it lives within us in energy.
Absolutely. So write that down, and also consider that to be a meditation to bring forth. So now what I'm sensing is there's strands of meditation that you can start to bring forth, even in small formats or so. And so even with what's going on with you, just consider these insights as promptings to do meditations around, bringing people into a new awareness of calm. You know, bringing people in exactly what you just had, written down just then, so, igniting the calm from within. There's so many different levels of this. So be present with that, because all of these are the braids. They come into the braids. So you can look at these different strands of braids. One braid is a strand of meditations and what that's going to mean. And will there be meditation retreats that you'll be hosting and meditation events and using these products and meditation journals or however to do that? Will, and like I said, you and I have some higher end works, for one of my meditation platforms, and it is really on the money mindfulness meditations. And so being able to, to leverage that. So that's a parting call of action too, to go ahead and get started, is take one or two of those awarenesses that you just jotted down and start already allowing yourself to be in the receptive mode of what's within to come out of you through expression, whether in an activation, whether in the meditation format is what I'm hearing. It could be a combination of both, but and start doing a meditation around those. And that right there, those are keys to open up the high-end work and living this life of the meditation in motion for sure. So so thank you so much, Brenda. I appreciate you tons again, and I just love this beautiful experience. I'm so proud of you. Just everything that's unfolding and emerging is just beyond magnificent. In terms of, can't even put words in context to this. So I just
it's feeling that way for me as well. And
great.
And I'm thrilled to think of the people who are ready to hear this and ready to start making this move into those higher dimensions within their life, the benefit that they're going to get from just from the wisdom that you've brought into this exercise. And what has emerged from me.
From you, right? I was just about to say, I'm excited. I appreciate that for sure. But I'm very much excited about, what has emerged from you that is now going to benefit the ready.
It's the perfect example of collaboration.
Absolutely. And that's your
I couldn't have done this without you. You couldn't have done this without me.
Right.
Together, it's so much more than 1 + 1.
Absolutely. It's the brain. That's right.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
All right. And with that being said, I'm just so grateful for this. I want to just give a thank you also to those who benefit from this experience, and whatever resonated from you, for you, be able to take that. And I said it right, from you, because it's actually coming. If you were part of this experience, that means there's something within you that brought you to this. And it's your wisdom and energy is flowing from you, and something that you've heard within this. It's a mere reflection of things that are already there and present for you. And you can be able to build from this context as well, and being present in those different dimensions of your chakras, and then taking what resonated from you from Brenda's experience, and then let that be your springboard and your slingshot, if you will, to launch you into your next levels of success. And let that be your commission to now communicate. And what's coming up now, communicate in the way of beingness. That is the expression. And let that be the consistency that plays out. But would love for you to definitely connect with Brenda, and there'll be information below where you can learn more about the works that we do. And also too, if you would love to have Brenda and I facilitate a process like this for you, so you can discover your higher levels of being able to be commissioned to communicate, whether it is in the high-end way or just to get yourself started with this initiative. So there'll be the information, as I mentioned, below, with the activations and other information that you can, stay in touch with us. So want to leave you with this. Allow yourself to fully be all that you're here to be. You are commissioned to be the fullest expression of you, and that is the instrument of communication that you bring forth in the world during this time. So send you away with many blessings, and thank you for being a part of this experience.
Thank you so much, AliNICOLE.
Thank you.